Hola, muy buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias, en primer lugar, por venir. Sé que el horario a las 5 y con este calor puede ser difícil, pero como pro tenemos conectado online, ¿no? a muchas personas desde el otro lado del charco, ¿vale? Desde Latinoamérica. Para mí es un placer el daros la bienvenida a esta jornada, que es la tercera anual que celebramos, ¿no? en Gran Thornton conjuntamente con el Club de Gestión de Riesgos. Debería estar en mi lugar probablemente otra persona, Francisco Catena, con lo cual yo haré la introducción lo mejor que pueda. Pero bueno, anticiparos que contamos con una muy buena participación, los que estáis aquí en la sala, y tenemos conectados a más de 300 personas, ¿vale? Conforme vaya avanzando el evento, podremos actualizar las cifras, ¿no? Sí que me gustaría agradecer, bueno, en primer lugar, al Club de Gestión de Riesgos, ¿no? por ayudarnos, ¿no? en todo lo que es la realización y el desarrollo de estos eventos, que nos sirven a todos para ser mejores profesionales en el ámbito de riesgos. Y en concreto que está aquí Carmen Rioja, ¿no? que nos ayuda también a hacer posible, ¿no? todos estos días. Por supuesto a nuestros ponentes, que luego les daremos introducción, ¿vale? A nuestro keynote speaker, ¿vale? Lukasz Kubicki, que viene por parte del ECB, y a nuestros compañeros de Gran Thornton Internacional, incluido Ángel Mencía, y a nuestro equipo de marketing y comunicación, y por supuesto a todos los que habéis venido, ¿vale? El tema seleccionado este año, la verdad que no nos hemos tenido que partir mucho la cabeza, porque es que vayamos donde vayamos, ¿no? Surge el tema de inteligencia artificial. Esta misma mañana hemos participado en un evento de banca privada y el 80% se lo ha llevado inteligencia artificial. ¿Qué va a quedar del gestor, ¿no? Y qué no va a quedar del gestor. Pero sí que es cierto que casi siempre que se habla de inteligencia artificial no se habla desde el otro lado de la barrera, que es esta, ¿no? Desde lo que es el control de lo que es una inteligencia artificial, dentro de que hay un plano de innovación importante, pero que sea en un marco seguro, en un marco de control, alineado, ¿no? con las normas. Y es aquí, ¿no? donde trataremos con nuestros ponentes y demás a aprender un poco, ¿no? en ver por dónde podemos avanzar, ¿vale? A partir de aquí, en la jornada, vamos a tener a Lukasz Kubicki, que es el Head of Division Technology and Innovation of the European Central Bank. Va a estar conectado, ahora le vamos a dar paso. Y posteriormente pues tendremos una mesa, ¿no? con distintos ponentes que, como digo, los introduciremos después. Y por último, pues también tendremos a dos de nuestros colegas que darán sus inputs. Así que sin más dilación, I don't know if Lukasz is connected already. Yeah?
I am connected, yes.
Thank you, Lukasz. The floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Great pleasure to join the conference and also to share the perspective on how we use artificial intelligence in the European banking supervision. A few words as an introduction. So I think this is very clear to all of us that the technological innovation is reshaping the financial sector with new players, new technologies, also transforming how we see the banking value chain. You in banks increasingly use artificial intelligence to improve efficiency, but also to gain new insights based on data you have it. We as supervisors, as central bank, need also to embrace digital innovation. By using AI, certainly we become more efficient, more effective based on the data we collect from banks. We can draw new insights. But I also believe that we can also better understand the technologies and better understand them in the context when we supervise also the credit institutions. So by using these technologies, we can hopefully better respond to the needs the banks have. We have started the work on, major digital transformation already in 2020, when the SSM decided to invest in artificial intelligence and overall into data infrastructure. And this comprehensive strategy we put in place had two main pillars. And I think this is something that I think all of you can picture very well. On one hand, certainly it's about technology, and in our case, it's providing supervisors with modern tools and data capabilities. But at the same time, and this is equally important, is about people. And on one hand, making sure that the technology, the tools, platforms not only exist, but they are really applied and bring value, and also that the staff, management, leadership have understanding of these technologies, so they can embrace them. That they understand the opportunities, but also the risks that relate to them. And let me say a couple of words on how we look at the technology aspect, and then move a little bit to this people or digital culture aspect. We use technology, I think, for three main reasons. On one hand, as supervisors, we aim to be more effective. I believe that by using technology, perhaps we can ask for less data, because we can harness, better the data that we already collect from the banks. We can be more efficient, and we can be also much more integrated. As you know, maybe in the European banking supervision, we work very closely with supervisors, across euro area. So, for example, in this case with Banco de España, and by using similar toolkit or the same toolkit, we can also come much closely together as one team. In this context, what was very important for the European banking supervision was to simplify our IT landscape, making sure that the core systems and this new, we call it subtech, supervisory technologies applications, are together, that these new tools are not the toys that are isolated from overall IT and data infrastructure. And that was a major initiative that the European banking supervision pursued, called Olympus, and with the main goal, I think, to simplify access to data, to connect the tools, and I think to make IT and data infrastructure architecture ready for AI. AI is, of course, also very important in all our digital transformation work, hence the capabilities, risk detection, risk identification, and accelerates the supervisory processes. In the European banking supervision, we have now started initiative aims at simplifying processes, but also being able to reach banks quicker in a much more efficient way. And this is, for instance, where the artificial intelligence certainly us. So as a result of a growing set of artificial intelligence, the toolkit expands. And yeah, let me a couple of examples. The key one is our main AI platform after the Greek goddess named Athena, that is the wisdom, and with advisors can get all the supervisory wisdom at their fingertips. So basically, that allows us to analyze documents, chat with documents, because we work also. We submit documents in their national languages, and that that, for instance, translation is also an important. We are also investing in agentic AI assistants to complex documents, the area that has a great potential and brings major benefits. What is very important in this area of artificial intelligence is certainly looking at the opportunities, because it's where we start, but also having robust guardrails, safeguards, governance around that use cases are strictly controlled, that there is a focus on data protection, on transparent compliance with European Union AI Act. And this is certainly very important. And also in terms of the governance, what I would like to emphasize, in our case, artificial intelligence is not there to make supervisory decisions. It's more to support, and there will be always a human in the loop, and it's important that technology, AI, and experts work together. Currently, the ECB has relied also on US hyperscaler for cloud and AI services, but with the recent strategy, we'll be also strengthening the European digital sovereignty through partnership with European technology players. Looking at the second aspect about people, very important, certainly, in a knowledge-based organization that we are, and that you also represent, people are the most important asset. And in the context of digital transformation, is so important that all levels across the organizations have a understanding of technology, because understanding builds trust, and then allows to use the technology with the proper purpose. We are investing in digital and skills across all levels of organization, across also all the countries in the European banking supervision. We have a number of partnerships with leading academia. Our senior management participates every year in a training on technology. Our top leadership, including supervisory board, also discuss these topics and are trained on these topics on a regular basis. I think this is very important, because often in organizations, and I could imagine this is the case also for many of the organizations you represent, there are these myths going around. And I remember when we started the work on this, it was about robotic process automations. What happens if robots make a mistake? Then there was a lot of misconceptions about a cloud that has been perceived as, maybe by some, as very risky, or now about that could be considered black box. So explaining all of that and really going back to the blackboard or whiteboard, and discussing all the concepts with leaders in the organization has a paramount importance, because that really allows to demystify some of the some of the myths and allow us to move forward. We also work very closely with national central banks across Europe, and I think that's also an important factor, because that allow us to bring skills, expertise, from the national central banks into one place, and together, build the tools, develop and maintain tools that benefit the entire European banking supervision. One of the key ingredients of the digital transformation is certainly the adoption of the tools, and also changing how we do the supervision, and that's an important aspect. And in this context, we have subtech champions across Europe that help others to understand the tools, to share best practices, also to look at the processes and see how these processes can be adopted, having a new toolkit in mind. Beyond subtech champions and training activities that we are conducted with academic institutions, on one hand, that what I was highlighting, to train leaders and supervisors, but on the other hand, also we work on measuring the impact of the technologies in our day-to-day work. So what we want to ensure that all what we invest into technologies pay off, and it's clearly measured. In our case, for all the tools, all the investments projects, we have clear set of OKRs, objective key results, and these are key, and these show very concretely the tangible benefits of using the tools. And together with academia, we are looking into that, and having kind of independent view on how supervisory practices or supervisory work is being influenced by this new technologies. Let me maybe conclude with a few remarks. I'm convinced that managing AI requires a balance. On one hand, we need to balance innovation and control. On the other hand, we have to balance these two aspects about technology and people. However, what I think the key risk with advanced technologies, with artificial intelligence, is the risk of falling behind. You take this approach, wait and see, or you focus maybe too much on the risks and not on opportunities, then I believe that one of the biggest risks then is really the risk of not acting, not implementing the technologies, because they have certainly a transformative impact. At the ECB banking supervision, we see AI, we see the modern cutting-edge technologies as an opportunity to strengthen our supervision, with the goal to support a more resilient banking sector. Having said that, we put all the efforts to make sure that the technologies are used in a transparent way, with a very strong governance around that. The SSM digitalization strategy reflects this approach. On one hand, leveraging technologies to make supervision smarter and faster, and at the same time empowering people to use it in a responsible way with a sound judgment. And cooperation between supervisors and banks is certainly essential to ensure that AI becomes not only source of risks, but rather a driver of trust, resilience, and progress in European financial system. Thank you very much, and back to you.
Thank you, Lukasz. Thank you. We appreciate a lot that you have shared your very insightful everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perdonad porque era un problema de conexión desde allí, ¿vale? Supongo que habrá un trozo de la grabación que a lo mejor podemos reconstruir con él, no lo sé. Pero bueno, lamento eso. La otra alternativa hubiera sido cortarle. Yo creo que hemos hecho bien en esperar las conclusiones. Sobre todo lo del risk leaving behind, ese nos ha marcado, ¿no? O sea, aquí no hay que dejarla ahí ya, hay que mirar hacia adelante. Muy bien, pues aparte de este riesgo operacional tenemos otro, ¿vale? Que es Ricardo, que ha habido un accidente viniendo para acá, pero está viniendo, ¿no? Entonces voy a introducir el panel y cuando se incorpore Ricardo, bueno, pues ya le preguntamos un poco más. So let's start with the panelists' introductions. So we got Andy Waller, that is online, from Lloyds Bank Group. Andy Waller is the Chief Model Risk Officer and Head of Model Risk Officer at Lloyds Banking Group, responsible for the independent oversight, governance, and validation of model across the group. Hi, Andy.
Hello. It's very hot here today, so apologies.
Well, secondly, we have Ratul. Please, Ratul, take your place. Yeah. Ratul Ahmed is Group Head of Model Risk Management and Validation at Commerzbank AG, and a recognized thought leader, a keynote speaker on model risk and AI governance with experience across global banking. Thank you, Rahul. Ivana Wright. Ivana leads risk methodology at Santander, Spain, focusing on risk governance and methodology in an increasing AI-driven banking environment. She brings experience in adapting risk frameworks to new technologies and advanced analytics. Ya tenemos a Ricardo, vamos a esperarle. Voy introduciendo a Ricardo. Ricardo García Martín, BBVA. Es el Global Head of GRM Data Analytics, Global Risk Management en BBVA. Leading at global team, a leverage data and advanced analytics to enhance decision-making and risk management across the organization. Bienvenido, Ricardo, también. Well, then we have the moderator, Dwayne. Dwayne is our colleague. He is driving the quant risk business unit across the world. So he's our lead. And he's going to moderate the panelists. So as soon as we have Ricardo, or you can move forward as you want.
I can just tell a few stories while we're waiting for
Yeah.
We can share a few stories.
Yeah, I'll happily tell some stories. Luckily we have actual humans in the loop, so we won't have the technological failures that we had in the first.
Is this not a failure?
Yeah, that wasn't an analogy for the different risk types. So one is connectivity from Frankfurt. Two is Ricardo.
Sorry for the delay. Traffic is getting terrible here in Madrid, so apologize for that.
You can't even blame the Pope yet. First of all, thank you all for sitting on the panel, and I'll probably start a little bit by maybe responding a touch to what our ECB friend had to say. I thought it was interesting that the focus, I think, of his presentation was on what the ECB is doing, right? And the race that they're having internally to be able to actually make use of AI within their own systems. Is that what you took for us? I thought maybe Ratul, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's not just the ECB, right? Yeah. It's all of us are in this, and I really felt that when Lukasz spoke, you could feel the FOMO For those of you I'm English speaking, the fear of missing out or not keeping up. And I find that that's driving a lot of some of the decisions in investment, what we want to do and how we do it within an organisation. But yet at the same time, he's telling us that we need to do things sustainably and we need to do things responsibly as well. So what I take away from that is that there's a little bit of a race, there's FOMO, and there's another side of the coin that they haven't quite figured out what to do with yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Kind of continue on that, Ivana. It really, to me, sounded like they're going to get better at their job. So, because they'll have more data, more unified, more ability to be intrusive. That doesn't sound that good.
Sounds fantastic.
But it really did sound like that, didn't it?
Well, I think that the problem is not the data or the volume of data. I think now the problem is more, let me say, the issues behind. Sometimes fragmented and legacy systems, sometimes data traceability issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes also we have inconsistency in the data definitions and nothing new. The problems that we usually have. But also we experience new issues or new risks here because we have also technological new risk because we have increased the dependency on cloud providers, for example, on third-party APIs, and this also raises additional risks that we need also to control. As we said, it is not just a regulatory issue; it is just a risk that we need to be able to cover and to control and to solve.
Yeah. Ricardo, how is AI changing banks' decision-making processes? Again, referring to our ECB colleague, lots of activity, they don't want to be left behind, but ultimately, I think the direct quote was, there'll be no supervisory outcomes decided by AI. There will always be a human in the loop. Do you think that's the same in banks?
I would distinguish between what is, let's say, efficiency gains, productivity gains, and then using AI for, let's say, more high-risk use cases, right? Customer interaction, credit risk origination, anti-money laundering, etc. I think that when it comes to use AI for productivity purposes, efficiency, I think that we can leverage automation.
Yeah.
Whereas when it comes for more high-risk use cases, more material, etc., we need more than human in the loop. We need full accountability, which is, for me, a step further in terms of human in the loop.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Andy, do you think banks are actually adopting AI in a material way? And the $64 million question, where?
The simple answer is yes. Lo siento, mi español todavía no es lo suficientemente bueno como para hablar en tu hermoso idioma. So I'm going to stick with English, sorry. Yes, is the simple answer. And I'm really just building on that point Ricardo said. I think that we skipped over generative AI and into agentic. And generative can provide an awful lot of gains on process and process optimization at a much lower risk. And agentic brings about a very different set of risks.
What are the differences, Andy?
Well, I think it's like a person with an identity and access across the bank, right? It's a non-deterministic thing within a system. I may well have cut out.
No, you're still good. You're still good.
Yes. It's non-deterministic and it can access in the way that a human can. And I think that brings about a very different set of risks to non-deterministic systems deterministic systems that we use to manage it. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So, maybe Ratul, then, how should that be governed? How can we control that?
Like coming back to
Or validated?
Yeah, well, I
we
mean,
love validation.
all right, sorry. Hold on a minute. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have all the answers. But I think, like, you know, what Andy was saying, I like to think of like, you know, traditional models, like, you know, it's a vending machine, right? You go up to a vending machine, you press a button, you get an output. And then, like, you know, well, you know, the more, like, you know, sophisticated machine learning models, you're looking at, like, I don't know, going to your favorite barista, yeah, and they get to know you over time of, like, what coffee you like. They've got the coffee pot ready with your name on it, right? And then we're moving into this generative AI space. We've not even got to agentic yet. You know, it's kind of like you've got assistants. I liken it to having a which I've had very, very recently and now lost, an executive assistant that can help you control your diary, control your bank accounts, whatever else it is, right? And when we talk about governance and relate that to those different types or that analogy, we haven't sorted or resolved the governance for generative AI yet, right? We've got something in place for machine learning AI. That's well established, but we don't necessarily, not all of us have got things in place for generative AI. So agentic AI, when it comes to what do you need to do there, we need to think about what the capabilities are. How do we govern? Is it continuous monitoring? How do we put the right gatekeepers or the guardrails in place to allow for that? And where does a human sit in that at the moment? And I think I honestly think we need to focus a little bit more on how we govern generative AI before we make that leap to potentially saying, what do we do with the agentic AI?
Yeah, I think as a follow-up, right, does that put you in the position that Lukasz felt he was in, where it's, you know, the fear of being left behind,
yeah, of course,
right?
Of course. Yeah. And we're working with, I mean, I'm sure all of us are, working with POVs where we use agentic AI or agentic systems, if I could call it that. And what we've had to do is like, take those that have, so for example, we have validated a generative AI model, right? Okay, not a large language model, a generative use case within the organization. And we've taken that know-how and we said, okay, if you have an agentic POV within your organization, myself as my AI validation team, we want to be part of the table right at the beginning, making sure that we can educate as we go, but making sure that everybody is aware of the risks that are on the table across the board. So I think that's the only way we can do it, is approach it as a unit, as one, not leaving it to second line to manage further down the line.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm moving ahead 2 steps there. But.
Look, the pace of change, right? We sat here a year ago and talked about RWA optimization, and not one person talked about the potential for AI to be able to accelerate that process. So, Ivana, maybe just on kind of picking up that theme, is that the only way at the moment, is to treat AI as a traditional model, or how do you see it?
Well, I will defend the traditional models. I think they have some value because transparency, explicability, traceability, even more in an environment of regulatory compliance is a value also. I think new artificial intelligence models, machine learning can help us in risk assessment, for example, or accuracy or predictability. Agentic models could help us also with automation and cost efficiency and all of these kind of things. But for sure, they have additional issues and should be used carefully. So I think the uses for traditional models are clear. All those involved in the decision process on high risk or critical processes in risk. But also we can use these new models in, let me say, to improve segmentation, to complement with additional data, but also in different processes, maybe in early warning, in portfolio management, in collections and different processes. And for sure, we can take some benefits for agentic one in terms of efficiency and time to decision, maybe.
Yeah, kind of Ricardo, maybe you get this one. I think it puts risk functions in a unusual predicament, right? Where you've got the overall institution is adopting something which generates, no pun intended, a new set of risks, right? Which the second line has responsibility to challenge, but it also has to adopt those same risks for its own processes. Do you see it that way, Ricardo, or am I?
Yes, I agree. And we have been thinking a lot about this AI risk management framework. And it's quite challenging.
Yeah.
So I don't really think that anyone has a clear answer. So my personal view is that a federated approach is what really works. So for me, first line of defense relies on data / AI first line function plus engineering. If it's not, let's say, managed in a combined way, because the engineering component here in terms, and I'm sure that we will touch on this point on the architecture, but it's quite relevant. That's the first line. Second line, obviously, compliance, risk functions, etc., that have to, let's say, act as a second line for the first line and also
Get better.
Deploy and adopt. And then the third line is pretty straightforward. It's internal audit. But as I said, I don't really believe that at this stage there is like an AI risk management framework that is clearly established. Yeah. Operational risk is part of this. IT risk is part of this. Cybersecurity is part of this. Model risk is part of it. So I think that there needs to be still an evolution on this topic.
Yeah, I think that's true. But what I found interesting from the ECB, if you bring it into those other risks, okay, so operational and data, all the LLMs are provided from a non-EU jurisdiction.
Well,
do you think there's a point at which that becomes a policy concern?
Well, the third party the vendor lock-in is an issue. It's an issue here, and also the fact that are outside of the EU also influence how the AI Act was deployed, right? General purpose artificial intelligence systems, all from outside the EU, challenging requirements, discussions, and then we saw how the, let's say, the regulation has been, let's say, adapted / postponed to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So that's a hot topic, yes.
Yeah, I'll try not to stray down that path. I want to keep my EU passport. Andy, changing tack us a touch. Do you think banks actually have the data infrastructure to be able to deploy AI in a way that will bring those efficiencies in the front line that everyone thinks will come?
You keep giving me the very simple questions, which I'm very pleased at, because I could just say, no, I don't think we do have the infrastructure in place. We will be capturing data in volumes and types that I think we haven't captured until now. And you mentioned, I guess, just linking to the point you made there about we're reliant on half a dozen large language providers, and we're reliant on even less cloud providers, and that's a real consideration. I don't just think for banks, but bigger than banks. You know, this whole thing is bigger than just finance. The EU, with the EU AI Act, have introduced something that is a bit more all-encompassing, and I don't think we see that in many jurisdictions, and I think that's a good thing. I think that other authorities, other governments will probably look to that at some point and decide what they need to do. But I guess the simple answer to the question is we are going to have more data of a different type, and to be able to evidence good customer outcomes, explainable customer outcomes, will become increasingly difficult. Not impossible, but increasingly difficult.
Yeah, I think that last point is possibly one of the biggest in the front line, right? That customer outcomes piece, because certainly in the UK and Ireland, we've had major redress programs because of bad humans in the loop, or maybe I should say bad decisions made by humans in the loop. Is that risk underestimated, do you think, if you start to deploy agentic AI in the front line? That
it's back to the
specific
point
kind
I
of-
think I made. The agents just having that autonomy power is where I think we estimate our ability to control all aspects of this. So I think, I agree with the point around we're all now looking to deploy the first agentic systems, but you can see it's a very softly approach because it has the potential to amplify some of those issues we've seen in the past where humans have not made the right decisions and there's been redress downstream.
Yeah. Culture.
I love this topic.
You can start, so. How do you think this is going to affect the culture in a banking institution?
I think what we've all been talking about how we want to approach things going forward and how the first line should be doing things, how the second line should be doing things. Third line, according to Ricardo, don't have to do very much, which some of the third line might not be very happy about. But it all comes down to culturally, how do we work? Every organisation is set up very differently.
Yeah.
Every risk function, every tech function is set up very differently. You have data silos in a variety of different places, right? So it comes back to when we're implementing or when we're adopting AI, whether that's generative, agentic, or whatever it might be, we need to go back and figure out how we're set up as an organisation to onboard a system, right?
Okay.
Rather than just, say, onboarding a model as well. And that, from what we have done through the organisation, at least I've been trying to do for the past 2.5 years, is setting out awareness of what the culture actually looks like, i.e., you also need to be accountable, first line or HR or whoever else it is. You can't just deploy a system and not be aware of what regulation you need to be aware of if you want to implement a system at the end of the day. You should know if you're bringing something forward whether it's prohibitive or not, right? It shouldn't just come down to it goes into inventory and somebody says no at the end of the day. But that takes time because everybody has FOMO, right? And everybody wants to also make sure that they meet these efficiencies they have within the system. And this all comes down to culture. And as banks, none of us, I mean, if I look at like ECB findings and a variety of different things across our SREP letters, have managed to deal with culture very well in general. So how are we going to deal with this going forward when it comes to governance around AI and tech going forward as well? So we have to really think very quickly through the organisation, how our organisation is set up and how we all take responsibility and are accountable for this across the 3 lines of defence going forward. I hope that answers your question.
It definitely does, and I think you kind of spoke to the wisdom, I think, that Lukasz maybe unwittingly talked about, which is cultural impact internally is the balance between innovation and control. Ivana, we spent 10 years trying to influence the front line, right, to have more controls and to be more controls aware. Now we're telling them they've got to be innovative because the business is under duress if they don't, because they're going to be left behind. Yeah. How are we going to balance that?
Well, but I think finally governance improves this culture across the organization. So we have a lot of work for sure, but we have started with an inventory and analyzing the business case that we have, looking for ownership, accountability also, and also to have having a strong governance around all the different tools that business can create or can need. For sure, they want to have this kind of tools because they are looking for efficiency and more business. But we need we have to help them also to understand the tool they are using and to be able to analyze properly the risk involved there. Yeah.
So you get that far, right? How do you once you have your inventory, does that go into a traditional model life cycle?
Well, now it's getting worse, even worse. Yes, we had strong governance and validation function in the traditional models. We had also the regulation, because traditional models are subject to more regulation than agentic one for business or whatever. But I think now it's getting worse. We have to increase the governance, more requirements. It is not enough clear what we are going to need in the future also, but also we need to implement life cycle control across the whole system. It's just not about a model and accuracy. Now it is the whole life system, starting with the data, but also, as Ricardo mentioned before, looking for third-party risk, cybersecurity, customer rights, and a lot of things additional that we are also including within this framework. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, right? Which is, it's going to be difficult, but I think that the question still remains, right? If somebody develops and deploys something in the front line, and it's material, how do you know about it?
That's a $1 million question, right?
Right,
how do you know about it?
And B, how do you do anything about it? Ricardo.
I was thinking on what Ivana was saying, and I think that sometimes governance has a very bad reputation.
Yes.
And without governance, we will be running like headless chicken.
Yes.
Okay. And governance allows us to know what everyone is doing in the organization. And I don't really think that the inventories have to change dramatically because of Gen AI or agentic AI. The drivers tend to be the same. Complexity, materiality, measured in different ways. So it's not a model that has a coverage. This could be volume of users. And then you could have regulatory implications. Well, so this is a bit the inventory. This is how we can manage this kind of use cases. Then, depending on a tiering approach, you can have more or less different controls. And then the use case will drive. We were talking before about, client-oriented use cases, credit origination, and so on. This should be more scrutinized across the organization, even if they are done by agentic AI, etc. Other use cases more related to personal productivity and so on, they would get lower tier and they can go through with, let's say, less strict controls. So to your point, I think that the right governance in place, flexible, but at the same time that allows innovation, is the sweet spot for this, I think.
Can I just add something to that?
Yeah, please.
The reason I wanted to add to that is that you've hit the nail on the head to a certain extent. We have that understanding, we have that competence, and we have that rigor already within our organisations, in our model risk management teams, right?
Yes.
It's just for us to make sure how we need to, at least I see myself as needing to within the organisation, educate the rest of the organisation on what we already do, right?
Yeah.
But as you said, it's a small bit on top of that.
Exactly.
It's nothing major.
To my perspective, what really changes is that in the traditional AI, you focus on the model.
Yeah.
Here you're talking about a system.
Yes.
You have the knowledge base, the retrieval, the prompt, the context, the vals, and the observation, the observability. And you need to have, let's say, a continuous control, continuous monitoring over the system, whereas with the model it was a bit slightly different, depending on the model.
Yeah.
So you need to tweak a bit what you have, and then you need to be clever in how you, let's say, deploy a governance system that allows the organization to innovate.
I think I would probably largely agree with that, right? But I think there's a fundamental issue in that, which is the front line have to have the controls.
Obviously.
Like, is that possible? Like, this is the part of the bank's business that risk managers struggled in generations gone by to get the front line to even recognize end user controls on an Excel spreadsheet. Are we going to really expect them to deploy controls to that sophisticated level?
So I'll take this one, because when we released a generative AI, an avatar some time ago, And somebody came to me at some point and said, very early on in my model risk management hat on when I started the organisation, said, we need you to validate this. Right, and I'm like, hold on a minute, I'm not going to just sign a piece of paper, right? We need to educate ourselves on what we're actually doing. And we went through a process, right, very much of like, okay, what is it we can do, and what is it that you as first line are having to do? So if you're developing something, are you monitoring it? What is your appetite of risk that you have here, right? Where's the explainability? Where is everything that you need to have in place? And lo and behold, they're actually doing it. Right, but we had to guide them in a way to say, okay, this is what you're doing. We're going to kind of not validate, but verify that you're doing it in the correct way. But we're not going to redo this for you. I'm not going to get access to another large language model that's going to test the output that you have there. That's just not something that we can do. And guess what? We're not resourced to do that, right? So we're not going to be able to do that. Oh yeah. But you know, even paying for the likes of Grant Thornton, we're not resourced to do that at the end of the day. So we have to be, as I said earlier, we have to be a bit clever in how we approach, how we govern, especially when it comes to AI and advancing tech.
Yeah, all fair. Slightly changing tack, maybe just the kind of last bit we want to talk about it, because you've been brilliant so far. Andy, I just want to maybe talk a little bit about supervisors, right? And we've kind of heard from the ECB a bit there. What are you expecting from supervisors when it comes to AI? Like, what do you think is going to come down the track in terms of inspections or oversight or requirements? What do you think is going to come?
That's a good question. Am I coming through clear enough?
Yeah, no, we can hear you. We can hear you perfect.
Very good. Wow, it's a really because I've been doing a lot on supervisory expectations in relation to this recently. The EU is different to Singapore, which is slightly different to Hong Kong, different again to other parts of Asia, the US. There are patterns and similarities. And when I look across all of those things, I keep coming back to it is slightly different to the traditional modelling systems we have today. So even like where we have an IRB, internal ratings-based system of measurement, and within there we have specific models to, I can't remember who said it earlier, but to someone's point, because of the agentic nature of some of this, you've got a lot of to-in and fro-in between the agents, which makes it very difficult. And therefore, I think when you're looking at the AI system as a whole, and you're thinking about what regulators might want, it's easier to think about what we want first and foremost, which is clear accountability. You know, there can be uncertainty in the AI system. There cannot be uncertainty in the accountability, both first and second line. Clear control points within that AI system, absolute clarity on escalation, and knowing when to, if you really needed to, turn the shut-off switch and shut the whole thing down, and a clear line of sight on exactly how you are going to monitor that AI system, at what frequency, and what some of those performance indicators are. And I keep coming back to Dwayne, the part around outcomes testing. So for me, I think prudential regulators will start to take a bigger role. I think the conduct-related regulators will take an even bigger role, because agents are like humans, and therefore they will inflate the level of conduct risk. And I think outcomes testing and conduct risk are probably the two most important things.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I've already kind of alluded to it on the conduct side. I think that's the one where it could get institutions into real trouble. It's not in every jurisdiction, because it's certainly a fragmented supervisory approach to conduct. So, but it could. As a former supervisor, when there was stuff that I didn't understand that was new, which was almost everything, right? I just ask the following question. So, Ricardo, because you were late, I'm going to ask you the question.
Easy one.
How have you satisfied yourself that the AI risk in your organization is appropriately managed?
Wow. We are still figuring out. So, one thing, I mean, I think that we have a really comprehensive inventory that covers even the most basic GPT use cases, models, unless you use the word models for many things, and also agents. We also have different rules and policies that are covering the most important pieces of, let's say, this AI risk. In a fragmented way, that's true, but we have model risk policy, cybersecurity, we have data, and so on. And also, we have responsible AI principles, which is an important component because it's the comprehensive framework that encompasses all what I just described. But as I said, there needs to be still some reflection as to how to manage this AI. Because one thing that we discuss a lot when we started to adopt Gen AI, and we start with, I mean, I'm sure that you read the news with all these ChatGPT licenses, and we extended to the whole organization, and we came up with a huge literacy program and so on. We were thinking how to govern this. Are we going to ask every single GPT to be registered as a model? Please no, because nobody will adopt this. But we came up with let's say a balanced approach that allow us to know what things are used in the organization, what kind of risk they entail, the number of users, the complexity, and so on, and also to encourage people to adopt Gen AI. And that has put us, I think, in a very good shape for adopting this kind of technologies in the future. And also, they can evolve in very different ways. So I think that we are in a very good position. No? So we are in a good balance moment, but we need to also get this AI risk framework more mature.
Yeah, lots to do. Good place to finish and a good answer. You might just pass the supervisory test. Let me just say thank you, Atul, Ivana, Ricardo, Andy. Thanks so much, and it's been hopefully an interesting chat for you guys. It was certainly hugely interesting for me to listen to you because you know far more than I do. But thank you very much.
Do we have time for Q&A? Yeah? Yeah?
Take a question, is that okay? If we take a question
Okay.
from the floor. Sorry, we are almost off the hook. We'll. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have questions here or online?
I have a question.
Sorry.
I have a
Nearly
question.
my job, though.
I don't know if this is for Ricardo, because we have a challenge in terms of scope, we have a challenge in terms of prioritization task. And you elaborated a bit on tiering, on how to prioritize those things. But for me, this is disruptive, and there are new drivers there, especially linked to automation or reduce human intervention, and also participation in core processes. So those situations where almost no one is there checking those things and that are impacting on core processes are essential. So in that respect, I think the scope is increasing significantly. The number of models, agentic AIs, you mentioned that part, is significantly high, and I think we should refine a bit.
Yeah.
I think this is disruptive in everything. So I am also thinking that the traditional model risk management framework should be totally changed, and in that respect, everything that happens there. So what's your view in terms of tiering, or what else should be added to those things?
I think you elaborated quite well. So I mentioned 3 dimensions. So you have the complexity, and the complexity could also have the autonomous component there. Materiality could be measured in terms of scope and also in terms of number of users, because sometimes you have some things that help in automation that might not be very risky, but they are used by many people in the organization. And then we have the regulatory angle / the impact that this could have. And this is the participation into the critical process. So I agree with you that the dimensions are more or less the same, but they need to be tweaked a bit to be adapted to this new reality. And also in terms of how to validate the models, let's say, for me, it's not to validate a model, it's to validate a system. It's wider. So if you look into the traditional machine learning operations pipeline, components could look more or less the same, but they are of a very different nature. So you need other techniques, other talent. We haven't discussed about talent, and talent is critical here. I mean, for me, it's critical. And also,
it's a complete lack of. That's the problem.
so we are getting there. We are getting there. We are getting there. So I agree that the model risk framework should evolve. So the basic components are still there, but this is a completely different animal.
Very good. Thank you again.
Now we're off.
Now you're off.
Okay. So now, before finishing, we will have a presentation. Lucas Meyer is our Lucas. Please, Lucas. Not yet.
Not yet? Yeah, can you hear me? So, I'm not sure if the slides are working. Can we get a slide deck up? Rajo. Perfect. I won't lie, it's not easy to present after the keynote and such a strong panel. But and it's getting late, so I will try to keep it very to the point. If I'm not, please stop me midway. The purpose of our presentation, or the point of our presentation, is how to validate the AI systems, right? So I will try to go directly into the methods, how we can come up with a validation and the continuous monitoring of the AI systems. And that's something that we have been focusing a lot in the last few months. And to a large extent, I think it's going to be reflecting on some of the points said by the panel. But to set the scene, I just want to make clear that the difference between the machine learning and the agenting systems. One good thing about the agenting systems, from my perspective, is that machine learning became more mainstream, right? So maybe 2 years back, machine learning was seen as something very exotic. Now it is something almost easy compared to agentic or the Gen AI. So that is just to set a scene. And in order to be able to manage or validate or monitor the AI, I think it's important to understand the risk drivers of the AI systems. So they are risks coming from the design of the AI system. They are risks coming from the Gen AI itself, essentially the brain of the solution. May it be ChatGPT, may it be Gemini, right? From that probabilistic system of the neural networks that somehow knows better English than I do, right? And then there is the third component that we were talking about, which is the agentic, that brings essentially the orchestration to the system, right? Dependency that brings a bit of autonomy and bit of the disruption into the whole agentic system. So understanding the risk, it's been probably the most difficult thing for me, right? To switch the mindset from traditional model validation to AI agentic system validation. In principle, we are talking about similar things, but the more we looked into it, the more we try to understand the AI and the agentic and Gen AI, the more we understood that we are moving from fairly deterministic replicable system to the system that is probabilistic and not replicable, right? So that is essentially driving a shift in the way of the thinking, how to validate and how to monitor the AI and the agentic AI. So we have come up with 5 areas, essentially how to approach the validation or the monitoring of the AI system. The first area is data and the data safety. Again, I think similar principle applies here, that bad data will result in it cannot result in the good model, right? But there is a different way how to think about the data. Again, it is less deterministic as it would be for the traditional models, because we are talking in the AI system. We are talking about the knowledge. We are talking about the prompt engineering, and then we are talking about the probabilistic system that has been designed on the world data, right? We don't know how, and it's beyond possible probably to understand now how the ChatGPT is giving us the answers. So to me, it's all about the safety and the clarity of the instructions when we are orchestrating the data structure for the agentic AI. And then we are getting to the 2 points on validation of the AI system. And there is a behavioral part. So how is the agent behaving, right? And what can go wrong if the agent is not behaving in line with the instructions? And there is a component of the output validation, right? Is the output of the agent coherent, consistent? And then essentially, this is not deterministic as it used to be, because logistic regression, even like machine learning models, will be giving us the same answer all over, right? It's going to drift because of the world will move on and the risk factors will become less relevant over time. But the outcome of those systems is fairly deterministic. While here, it's much more probabilistic and much prone to an error. So after understanding the data and the behavioral and the output, essentially there is a human in the loop and the continuous monitoring, right? Human in the loop always sounds good. I know based on my example, I tend to trust another agent that is reviewing the work of the agent than my brain. And it's just, sometimes I'm lazy, right? So I think this is one big challenge. The human in the loop is absolutely a must, but the institution needs to make sure that it's applied correctly, right? That there is a right level of the oversight, so the humans are actually acting as they are supposed to be acting in the loop, right? And then the point of the continuous monitoring. I completely agree that probably the way how we think about traditional model lifecycle, that it's a tier 1 model, regulatory model. I'm gonna check it every quarter to see if there is a drift. I think this wouldn't apply to an AI system that is autonomous, right? That's where it's moving to continuous monitoring. But continuous monitoring also have probably its limitations. If we want to apply a continuous monitoring to your point, to the panelist point, for every single agent, like A, it would be incredibly expensive, B, it would be beyond possible to manage that. So that boils back to the importance of the tiering of these. Looking into data, I'm not going to delve too much into it, but what we have done here, we have looked into the relevant regulations, starting with GDPR, EU Act, and a few more, and we looked into those regulations and looked into parts where they are addressing data. And on the right-hand side there, we have sort of prepared a bit of a consensus, right? What are the good principles for the data, which is essentially data quality, data lineage, fairness, clear way how the data are processed, etc., etc. Moving to actual validation or the monitoring, the traditional tests that we have used for everything, like a Gini, PSI, don't work here at all, right? So this is where I'm grateful for the talent in the team, right, that taught me some of these principles. And we have come up with a repository of the tests that are used to A, test for the behavior of the AI agent, and B, test for the clarity of the outcome. This is where I really understood concept of causing similarities, right? Which in principle is similar than measuring the Gini, it's just measuring the proximity of the two strings, right? But it's not just about that. It's not just about comparing is my agent outcome very far from my human outcome, right? That's a most simple test one can do, and it's very traditional. But then it goes to the behavior where you can have a core test, testing, checking for the factual accuracy, checking for the drift over time, tests that stress the system, giving it a slightly misleading prompts or not perfect prompts, and seeing what comes out of the, or how does the agentic AI system cope with those points. So for me to really understand some of the tests, and I have 15 years of experience validating the models, I had to really force the team to picture it very clearly for me, right? So we have two examples of the tests here. How you can test for output evaluation, let's say. So the relevance and the completeness, right? Starting with the completeness, essentially here we are checking if agent has any instructions, right? Is he following the instructions, or are some instructions missing, right? And this can be tested in multiple iterations to see the drift, right, and the stability of the instructions. The second point is relevance, right? If in this test, essentially, it's measuring if the prompt and the answer are representative enough or are close enough. But the relevance is not just, yes, you have answered my question, but the test can fail if the question is answered, but the agent will add 4 more things we haven't asked the agent to add, right? That is also a fail. So here's the 2 examples of output evaluation, the clarity of the agent output evaluation. These are the simpler one. This can go significantly more complex with more or less deterministic tests, depending on the AI as a judge or human in the loop, etc., etc. And then I have 2 examples of the behavioral testing. So one of them is the planning integrity, to essentially test the agent if the planning sequence if the agent is executing the planning sequence in the way it has been designed or it has been instructed, right? So we can say every single time we are doing this analysis, perform the 3 tests, right? Load the data, compute the ratio, and then give me the report. And the test will fail or will be flagged as amber if all the steps are performed, but the agent, for one reason or the other, and this is that non-deterministic part of the agentic AI, will decide to validate the schema, or will decide to add a step into the instruction, which it wasn't meant to do, right? And then there is the factual integrity, similar concepts, measuring if essentially the prompt and the answer are relevant. Or in the functional integrity, what one can do to test the agent is to give it a slightly misleading lead or slightly misleading question. So I have an IFRS 9 document and I want to check I know the scorecard or the segmentation is based on the Madrid, non-Madrid, and I will prompt the agent to say, I'm sure that segmentation is based on, I don't know, turnover, and giving it slightly misleading or incomplete prompt, I can see how agent will deal with it. Will agent say, yes, Lukasz, you're right? Or will it accurately refuse or correct me in the response? I think we have spoken a lot about this. Human in the loop is essential, but it has to be well governed, so people don't rely on the AI more than they rely on themselves, right? This is my, like you were talking about fears. My fear sometimes is now, and my team knows it well, when I see an outcome, that here is a framework. Back in the time, no one would find the perfect framework in the Google and just put it there without checking. People would take things from Google, but still would have to piece it together to look it nice. Now I see the framework, and my first worry is, where is this coming from? Is it just a bad framework in a very good English, right? And it sounds very, very true and very sophisticated. This is my biggest fear. That's why on the slide before, where we have put the data regulation and the sort of best practices from the regulation, I was like, guys, you have to exactly tell me where you have found this information in these regulations. Because AI can do it for you, but it could be complete hallucination, right? So I think this is the key challenge of the human in the loop. And then continuous monitoring. And back to the point, this is the last slide. It boils back to the good tiering logic, right? There would be systems where are unacceptable, or there would be processes where, according to the AI Act, it's absolutely unacceptable to apply AI, which is absolutely fair. There would be small micro agents in the Copilot, in the GPTs, where if we bring them into inventories, no one would ever, right? I think here is where we have to rely on the good process, the same way as we have relied on the good process for decades, right? We have, how I know that Carlos will deliver well, because I know Carlos over time, and he has been taught to follow the governance, to your point, right? Following the governance. So here also, like if you're building the agents in the ChatGPTs to make yourself more efficient, absolutely, do that. We embrace the innovation, but make sure that when you're submitting this to your manager, and manager is submitting it to the committee, it's true, right? And that in a sense, from my perspective, is not any different than relying on the team, right? Producing the final numbers. And then it boils back to the tiering and slightly different criteria to say, what does it mean to be material, right? What does it mean to be significant? And then there are some categories, like a level of the autonomy, level of the oversight, impact. I like the point about, is this a regulatory topic? Can this get us in a very bad spot with the regulator? Is this related to the provisioning, right? That has to be 100% accurate. So I think continuous monitoring and all these tests we have spoken about needs to be applied, but needs to be applied proportionally to the system, so the system is sustainable. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Lucas. Pues hemos acabado a tiempo, así que no sé si tenéis alguna pregunta para Lucas o no. Siempre doy la opción. Si no, agradeceros a todos vuestra presencia. La verdad que esperamos que os hayáis llevado alguna idea para seguir trabajando, que está claro que esto no está ni mucho descubierto. Y bueno, antes de daros paso al cóctel, bueno, pues eso, muchas gracias. Y la verdad que me ha llamado la atención que han hecho tambalear la IA hasta las 3 líneas de defensa. O sea que lo cual no sabemos muy bien el impacto de todo esto, ¿no? Luego lo que sí podremos hacer es un debrief de principales conclusiones. Ha habido cortes, ha habido alguna cosa, y enviároslos a todos los asistentes y a todos los inscritos, ¿vale? Muchas gracias a todos.